The competition's got a huge problem. It's called Richmond. They're uncompetitive, Caroline. They're as bad as Fitzroy were in there last year. What on earth is going to happen? There was no Ablett yesterday, the best player in the competition. There was no Scarlett, best fullback. There was no Corey, and there was no Richmond. They were shocking.
And believe it or not, Geelong probably could have beaten them by a lot more. 108 points flattered Richmond. What good can you say about this Richmond footy team? I think
it's a blight on the game.
Shane Tuck was probably their best player, and we know he's not part of Damien Hardwick's future.
Turns it over too much.
Hardwick has been fantastic. I mean, I think Richmond supporters, Craig, would still rather they go down this man-on-man road than flood and try and lose games by lesser margins. At least he's putting some games into the younger players. He took nothing out of that game yesterday, and the AFL, I can tell you, are gravely worried about the Richmond Football Club. They won't be getting early draft picks.
You can't compensate them for poor performance.
No.
For poor selection at the recruiting table.
Well, everyone else has been.
Not for poor recruiting selection.
It doesn't matter what you call it. Of course they have rewarded teams that haven't performed.
Gary,
the priority picks are out now.
This is five-year plan.
This is five-year plan. To be bad.
They did, but they've been bad for 2 decades, or nearly 3 decades. This is year 5. This is year 1 of yet another 5-year plan. I promised I wasn't going to do this year, but you just have to look at what this poor coach has inherited and look back at presidents like Clinton Casey, footy managers like Greg Miller, recruiting guys like Greg Beck. Terry Wallace was the coach. Every one of them makes excuses and points at the other one. There wasn't enough money. There weren't enough people in the footy department. He had to do it all on his own. When is someone going to put their hand up and admit they ruined that football club? They left a basket case.
Okay.
People say that Dean Bailey inherited a basket case. He didn't inherit a basket case. He inherited a divided board and the wrong CEO, etc. This club is a disaster, and the AFL is very, very worried about them. Are they going to get any marquee games next year? Are they going to get any sponsors?
Well, maybe they just got to put a line and stop looking back and worrying about those things.
I don't think they are.
Well, there's nothing they can do about that.
As a football commentator, I just think it's worth pointing out once more that a lot of people at that footy club...
I don't think you should point it out again.
...who've given interviews this year... Greg Miller was interviewed in the Herald Sun this year saying he was a good CEO.
You've mentioned it plenty of times, though. I mean, what good is that going to do anyone by saying, well, these are the...
I think it's worth recording that in history some grave mistakes were made at that football club.
I think it's been recorded plenty of times.
Well,
let's just put it on the record one more time,
well, let's go. 8 or 9 times.
And not to labour the point, but Ben Cousins, the argument about on-field leadership is just ringing less true by the week. Just not working at all and unsustainable. Speaking of
Richmond and Geelong, Gary Ablett. Somebody told me he was partying on after the Logies last night at 3 or 4 a.m. Is that right?
Don't ask me. No, where I was at 3 or 4.
Look, I'm not saying he was drinking. I've got no idea. I know I gather he turned up at training today.
What are you talking about?
Well...
Weren't we talking about lies and honesty a couple of weeks ago?
We were.
This is one of those classic cases where you make a decision. You either tell the truth or you tell a lie.
I tell the truth. Someone said that Gary Ablett was at the JJ's after party, which started at 12 o'clock.
And you were there?
Thank you, Caro. I was there. I went up to a bloke and said, how's your hammy? It turned out it was Alf. But I didn't see... No, on my mother's grave, I didn't see Gary Ablett, but you did.
I'll clear it up for you. He wasn't drinking. So there you go. He's allowed to go out on the night of a game to a function with friends, and his former girlfriend was there, Lauren, who was the Channel 9 fraternity, and he was
you were with him, you were wearing him like a cheap suit the whole time? You didn't know
He was not drinking, and it's scurrilous of you to even bring it up in this environment.
No, look, it just interests me. I'll ask Grant, because he's unbiased. I find it
He wasn't drinking.
It was a Channel 9 party. You feel conflicted.
Hey, don't for 1 second think I'm biased or conflicted.